Good morning. Will the Health Science Program of Study Advisory Committee come to order, please?
I guess tradition will start with introductions. So just I could start with Anna and just go down, state your name and your institution or organization.
Anna Mejia Dichi, Healthcare Workforce Alliance of Central Texas.
Chair
Brian Stewart, Vice President for Academic Affairs at Tarrant County College, Trinity River Campus.
Lori Mosley, Dean of Health and Community Services, Hill College.
Abe Johnson, Vice President Provost, Frisco Campus, College.
Don Martin, Dean of Allied Health, El Centro College, and co-chair of the Health Science Program of Study Advisory Committee.
Wanda Johnston, Memorial High School, San Antonio.
Shirley McNeil, Chair, Allied Health Department at Lamar State College, Port Arthur.
Kimberly Miller, Health Science Team Lead, Plano Senior High School.
Michelle Trubenstein, Dean of Health Professions, Howard College, San Angelo.
And Sally Williams, Workforce Center Director at Dallas-Fort Worth Hospital Council Foundation.
Okay, we have actually two guests from the WECM Advisory Committee. Would y'all come out and say your name?
Hi, I'm Eileen Hanby. I'm the Executive Dean of Career and Technical Education at Navarro College.
College, President of Coleman College for Health Sciences.
Morning, I'm Dwayne Hiller. I'm Program Director here at the Coordinating Board in Workforce Education.
Gary Tomerlin, Deputy Assistant Commissioner, Coordinating Board. And thanks all of you for being here.
So everyone has a copy of the minutes, and you take an opportunity to review them at this time. Any additions or changes to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Abstentions? Motion passes. Minutes are approved. Okay, public testimony on agenda items. Do we have any public testimony on agenda items? Looks like we do not. So we'll be moving on. We're going to move on to the review of the Health Science Programs and Study Subcommittee reports. And the first one up is the Rehab Services.
And Don, I'm not really part of the public, but maybe if I could make a few comments, if that's okay. Maybe when we did this agenda, I should have written myself in the agenda, but I didn't. Or I didn't think about when Dwayne was doing it, I didn't do it. But, you know, I think it's probably appropriate to point out, I mean, and it should be obvious that this, we last brought this group together about a year ago. And when we brought y'all together at that time, we certainly had no plans of letting a year lapse from one meeting to the next meeting. But, quite candidly, we were adversely impacted by the hiring freeze imposed last year. We had a person whose job was largely to do programs of study, and that person left, and then about the time we were extending an offer to somebody, we were negotiating, and the hiring freeze was put in place. And so that left us without a person. And I guess, to come full circle on that, we actually have a second interview with a person this afternoon. And so we hope to finally, literally after a year, get back up to speed and get everything back in place and all that kind of stuff. And it's not really an excuse, if you will. It's just a statement of fact. And but we do appreciate you bearing with us and hanging in there with us as we get more of this program of study work undertaken, both in health sciences and other disciplines as well. And then the next thing I want to talk about, I think you are all aware of, and this is especially the community college folks, business and industry and secondary, this may not apply to you quite as much, although it is important information. The WECM course revision process historically was a field-driven process to where we looked at the courses over basically a 4-year review cycle. Well, as part of the work of getting ready to do the programs of study, we also brought the WECM group into being a coordinating board advisory committee. We established it as a formally board-appointed committee, much like this committee. And what we're trying to do is move away from the time-bound process of reviewing WECM courses every 4 years, and we want to look at WECM courses on a trigger basis, on a upfront proactive basis, as opposed to a reactive kind of thing. I think I've talked about that. You've probably heard me mention it before. But the reason I'm talking about it now is there is a memo that either has gone out or will be going out probably before the week's over, and it's talking about the WECM course process. It kind of summarizes what I just said, and it more importantly, it asks and says, are there any courses that need to be revised, reviewed, updated, that kind of stuff? I believe we're planning on sending it to the presidents, the chief academic officers, and then, of course, the community college liaisons. And so my point is, get your hands on that memo, and if there are courses that need to be reviewed, let us know. And then as part of that, each of the subcommittees, when they met, they were asked to provide input about the WECM courses. Are there courses that need to be reviewed or edited, revised, added, updated, whatever status they could possibly have? But I share all that with you that we're in the process of evolving and changing. I don't remember this discipline, but I know in some of the architecture and construction stuff, like as an example, one of the conversations that was had by the faculty on that subcommittee was about consolidating 3 courses into one. And the faculty, not us, said, these courses are all subsets of each other. And even some of the health science disciplines kind of had some conversations, as I recall, that these courses are all, I remember one conversation, I don't remember what the discipline was, but I said something to the effect of, if I understand correctly, this course is 70%, and this course is 80%, and this course is 95%. Why do you need all of those courses? And then the faculty came forward and said, this is our recommendation. And so the point is there are some courses that are being used that are going to be recommended for being archived as part of trying to have more commonality in the courses as we try to align programs around the state. And so my point is it's a faculty process. It's not an us process. We could probably just go do data analysis and say, look, this course is only being used by one college in one corner of the state. Everybody else is using this. Let's archive that course. We're not doing that. We're bringing it to the faculty, we're bringing the conversation, and of course, we're saying that if there are courses that need to be revised, let us know what they are. And I guess one other point is, and health sciences may be an exception to this, but we're saying, if we need to fix one course in a given rubric or a given area, let's have a conversation about that one course. We may not need to go review all of computer science just to change a Microsoft course, if you will. So that's kind of where we are. We're really looking for feedback. The liaison meeting was in early November, and I had almost the same spiel there. The liaisons are generally the vice president's of instruction at the colleges. That's not an absolute, but they're pretty much in agreement that, changing it proactively as opposed to reactively makes sense. And if there's a health science discipline that the standards are changing, the accreditation, whatever they're looking for, let's try to change it in unison when those standards go into effect, as opposed to going in and creating local need or special topic courses or whatever it is that we've done in the past. Let's get together at the state level, let's revise those courses and put them in place to coincide with the changes. And so we need, really kind of that messaging to go forth. I think we've talked about it because we've kind of been in this transition for, I think, 3 years now. It seems like it. I've been kicked so many times. That's one of the boots on my foot, but no, not really. But we already talked about that. But anyway, so if you have any feedback or comments about that, I welcome them. And that's my non-public public testimony. Thanks, Don.
I say it's the right thing to do. It's about time.
Change is always somewhat challenging, but it is. I think when we get there, it'll put us in a better place, a better spot.
And I had a quick question. The memo that's going out, is that for every workforce discipline, or is that going to be for by clusters?
No, it's WECM in general. And by the way, I guess I should ask or point out that it's a close-the-loop process. We're kind of saying, hey, if you know courses, let us know, give us WECM comments, and if not, then just kind of reply to Dwayne and say, I've looked at this and I'm good. And, quite honestly, we did this last year about this time, and as an example, we got information that truck driving was changing. The requirements to get a commercial truck driving license was changing. But then the information we were given is that that's not going to happen until 2020. And then about that time, we got the new presidency who put all of the administrative rules and that we're currently going through review on hold. And so we're not exactly sure where that is, but we need to have those kind of things on our radar screen so that as they're changing, we're prepared to change in unison, or as close to possible as we can. And I guess I should point out for y'all, anybody listening, we understand catalog scheduling, all that kind of stuff. Your fall schedules are probably either built or close to being built, and you're getting ready to roll those out. We understand that. So if the truck driving courses were to change tomorrow, and then we get together the next day, after that, and this is pie in the sky dreamland, right? And we came up with the new content, whatever it is. We might either find a way to put them and whack them and say these are new. If you can get them in your system in time, go forth and implement. But then it would probably have to be fall of next year, just because the catalog schedules and all that kind of stuff. And so we understand the timing, but we just have to figure out a way to make the timing and the complexities of all the things that we have to do to get schedules built coincide with WECM. We don't necessarily have to have a workshop every summer and then not, and especially if it's, what if there was a change that just, it changed the legal reference? If there's a course that says this has to be taught subject to CFR, blah, 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 whatever it is, and all we need to do is change that reference. We just need to take it to the WECM committee and say, hey, y'all, this is just a substantive legal change. It's just a placeholder. It's a pointer. Let's do that. And let's do it, and let's put it in WECM, and let's move on. And it's better for y'all's schedule. It's better for our schedule. And, of course, we'll send notices of when these courses are changed. The WECM committee, we're working on revising the protocol of trying to figure out how to make all this happen at the state level when we're as big and as diverse as we are, but it is a process, it is evolving, and so just hang in there with us, and we appreciate your feedback, and let's find a way to better serve students over time.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Now, we'll go to the review of the Health Science Program and Study Subcommittee reports, and we'll start with the Rehabilitative Services Program and Study Subcommittee.
This is actually just a more information item. Occupational therapy assistant program of study has already gone out for public comment. It was approved last year by this advisory committee, and so it has gone out for comment, and we've included that, and we've included the comments that we've received. Since we go through those, we'll respond to them, and then we'll propose this to our board in the June-July cycle. And like I say, this program of study for occupational therapy assisting is more a minimum or a core. And a couple of the comments were that they were surprised or disappointed that there are certain courses were not included in the program of study. And our response to that is, the colleges at the local level can include those courses or include those outcomes in their programs. But this is just the minimum core that a student would able to transfer with. And again, we can look at those. And on the last page is the physical therapy assistant program of study. Again, this was also recommended by this committee last year, but there was an issue with the credit hours. I think the one that was recommended had a total of 53 credit hours maximum. And even with that, it did not include the practicum or clinical courses. So we've changed it to show the minimum credit hours. And we included a note that colleges may select additional courses and/or higher credit hour options for some courses to complete the maximum of 51 semester credit hours for this program of study. So it's the 51 hours of physical therapy assisting courses, and then the 15 hours of general ed brings it up to the 66 hours that the physical therapy assistant program is approved for. And again, this is one of the programs that has an exception to the 60-hour rule, and so that maximum would be 66 semester credit hours. Again, this will be going to the board in the June-July cycle.
Subject to their...
Subject to your consensus, I guess, or approval. I'm sorry?
Physical therapist.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, I'll make that note that the title of the program is Physical Therapist Assistant.
Was there any public comment on the physical therapy? The reason I asked is that it looks like the entire curriculum is set and there's no wiggle room.
Yeah, I agree with you. That would be
Oh,
a concern to me, too.
I'm sorry, I guess I stepped ahead. This will be going out to public comment
okay.
upon your approval. And
Oh,
then,
we have to approve it.
right.
How long will they have for public comment?
It's a 30-day period.
30 days,
So-
and then it goes to the next step with...
Right, we address those comments, and if there are substantive comments, we'll bring it back to either the subcommittee or the advisory committee.
Back to us.
Right.
Potential, okay.
Okay, we're supposed to approve this. I have a concern about, it's got all the curriculum in there. I think Abe has the same concern. Do we voice our concerns? I mean, what's the protocol?
I might also mention on the back page, number 5, students in good academic standing should complete year 1 prior to transfer attempt. So the idea is that if a student is more than 1 year into the program, then it is not recommended that they transfer.
And y'all know this better than I do, but does the 40, because I think it has to do with the minimum hours versus the maximum hours, because obviously if you do 51 plus the 15 gen ed, you're at 66. But if you do the lesser combinations in WECM, does that give you flexibility? And I don't know. I mean, I'm
Yeah, this is a discussion that we've had in the past. I believe it was with the OTA when I think they were the first ones that were brought to us, and we talked about the number of hours and the range that they had created, and the flexibility that it gives them. And in my opinion, this gives a program 26 hours to play with in gen ed and dental hygiene curriculum to adjust according to their local needs.
The issue with going with the low end, Gary, is that it actually then reduces the contact hours for individual courses that's already listed. That's how you get the range. And my concern is that the comment that Dwayne made, that each college would have some leeway of adding 1 or 2 courses here to maybe it's a specialty in that area that they're looking for or whatever. That we may be limiting that with this is the only concern. I mean, again, if the subcommittee is going for it, it's just harder for deans when they develop programs. And the other thing that I see is if it's at the 51 hour with no room, colleges have the option of not adopting POS, or they may tend to not adopt POS for PTA because they're so tightly, it's just observations.
Another issue that I think, excuse me, needs to be looked at is when we came up with these 68 or 60-hour curriculum, 66 for PTA, we did some manipulation of these courses with labs and lectures and things. And so this curriculum actually started out as a 72-hour curriculum. They bit at it to get it down to 68. And you're really squeezing them into this. They really don't have any wiggle room.
Well, and the idea is, and a correction, that it's 66 hours.
Right, it's 66.
But,
it was at 72.
right, but this is, again, this is the recommendation from the subcommittee.
I know.
And all of them say that they can work with this curriculum for their current programs. They can fit their current programs into this curriculum. And so I guess the question is, and the reason we'll go out for public comment is to find out, is there issue with current curriculum fitting into this, or current programs fitting into this curriculum?
and
I just wanted documented that both of us had concerns on it.
Well, and I think when we send comments, we can, share that with the committee perhaps. But as I recall, and I'm not going to say this definitively because I've slept since then, but when we did the 60 semester credit hour workshop at the Crowne Plaza a few years ago, and we brought in the 5 or 6 or 8 disciplines, however many it was, I know it was somewhere on that number. I'm not, again, don't hold me to a definitive number. I believe this is the group that said, why don't you just pick one sequence of courses and we'll all adopt it? I think. But that's what I was asking Donna, and so we're not 100% on board with that. But as Dwayne does point out, this, this is the subcommittee made up of the faculty from that discipline. And again, kind of back to my comments earlier when I was talking about WECM and the programs of study, if you will, that's why it's so important that faculty drive these, not, just exclusively data or, some, us upstairs, throwing darts at courses, and we add that one and discard that one. But yeah, we can certainly figure out a way to shape it from a, that the committee moves this forward, but the committee expressed concern about the number of hours and flexibility. But that's up to y'all, okay?
I think it needs to be real clear when it goes out for public comment that they have a 40 to 51 hour range to select from in the PTA content. And then also that that flexibility can be applied to gen ed or PTA content if they feel like they need additional PTA content for their local areas. So
Right. And to that point, they could still add 11 hours. Dwayne, it is 66, right? For the
Yes.
max. So it still allows 11 hours of additional physical therapist content, and then meet the 15 for gen ed, assuming there's no gen ed in this, which I don't see anything gen ed that would qualify for gen ed in the list.
And I'm sorry, just to make a correction, I just did a little math, and the minimum is actually 42 instead of 40. So I'll make that correction.
other comments? Questions? Okay, so I guess we need recommendations on, let's do OTA for, are we doing any separate? OTA, PTA? Well, OTA's been out.
OT's already been.
All right, so let's look for recommendations on the OTA. So I'm going to open it up to you guys for.
Can I ask one question? Dwayne, where did you get 42?
I'm sorry. My mind's a little fuzzy again. It is 40. So. Thanks for bringing that up. Exactly, yeah.
And so we have a question about, we are actually making a recommendation on OTA for THECB rather than approving that, right? I mean, this is not an approval group, this is a recommendation group. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I guess, yeah, that's right.
It's just a point of order, because we want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, just to clarify, by recommending it to the coordinating board, you are saying that you approve it.
Yeah.
Your other option, if you vote not to approve it, is to send it back to the subcommittee, maybe with instructions or changes.
And so that's the discussion we need to have now about the occupational therapy assistant, whether we recommend to THECB to move it forward, or if we recommend to send it back to the OTA committee, subcommittee.
Well, right. The procedure would be you approve it, then it goes out to comments, and then it goes to the, if the comments are clear.
OTA's been to comments, hasn't it?
Right, yeah.
So we don't need to do comments
I'm sorry,
again.
we're talking about two different things.
Yeah. We're at the point where we either send it to you guys or we send it back to the subcommittee, correct? OTA.
Well, to clarify, OTA you already approved at your last year's meeting.
Right.
So this is going to the coordinating board.
We're not taking any action.
No action.
We don't take any action.
That's
Right.
Yeah, that's what we're asking. So after the comments, we didn't have any concerns with that. We're just going to let that one go.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. That's
Yeah, I'm sorry.
because this is actually the first one we've had to move forward with. So we're not sure where we are here. All right.
No, we don't.
Okay. So on to the PTA.
Dwayne, can you tell us the process if you thought some of the comments were substantive?
Well, first we'd just bring them back to the, I guess, first to the subcommittee, and then get their responses to them, and then we would forward those responses, I guess, to the whole advisory committee, and, make sure that you were on board with those.
Do you have to respond to all of the comments or not?
We have to prepare a response for each comment, yes.
Yeah, and it's not so much if we make a decision if they're substantive or not. I mean, obviously, if there's a spelling error or something like that, we'll send to the committee, the subcommittee, and say, hey, this was pointed out. We recommend that we change it to this and suggest new verbiage. But then, of course, if there's something that is just a major issue that everybody has overlooked, then at that point, we will probably make a recommendation, but then we'll also defer to the subcommittee if they come back together and have a face-to-face meeting, or if we just resolve it by email or whatever. But we don't want to bring people to Austin as much as we like y'all coming here just to spend, a few minutes and agree to some perfunctory kind of thing. But it's always a field-driven input kind of thing. And the field tries to look at, like if we get 40 comments, just making one number that says, yeah, this is good, and these two kind of say, I don't like this, just kind of generics, I don't like it, then the committee they'll have all that information, and then we'll share it, and depending on how all that works out, then we'll bring it back to y'all. And again, probably the same kind of process of via email of everybody's good with this, it's still substantively 99.9% the same. Are you good with it? And then we'll move it forward to the board for approval.
I just think it's important for the committee to understand that there is a process. It doesn't go up there, you get comments and move on there.
Who was the chair of the subcommittee, or the co-chair?
I was one of them, but.
It has been a while.
You have the materials?
I think.
I was just curious what your comments might be, with sitting with those faculty, program directors.
Right, and if you remember, this is, the subcommittee was called Rehabilitative Services, and it included both OTA and PTA, and I think there were 3 members there who were in OTA, and so, like Anna was saying, they pretty much, those 3 kind of came to a consensus to say, well, here's what we feel comfortable recommending. And
But I do think that's the important point, Brian, and we'll see if we can't find you the name just so you'll know. But it was the subject matter experts. They engage in the conversation, and then they reach the consensus. And so it's their process, not so much our process. I think is the important thing. So, and we don't put a number out there. We don't say. Now there is a certain amount of. At least from my point of view, in a 60 semester credit hour degree, AAS degree, there's 45 hours of technical content and 15 hours of gen ed. And then, we kind of encourage the committees to start maybe backing up from the 45 as opposed to starting at 0 and adding 1, because what is the common ground? And most of the committees are working on that, and they're coming up with a number and getting to some good midpoint. But it's the faculty that are talking about it.
Well, and if you look at the,
I'm sorry, just a reminder, if you're speaking, to make sure your microphone is on.
it's on.
Okay.
You don't need.
I know.
Everybody
but
can hear me.
But they do. They're in a soundproof booth back there, and so.
Oh well, it's on.
Okay, thank you.
while it looks like that they have a very small program of study, this program is accredited. All the accredited programs, there are standards set for what the curriculum must have. They won't say the courses, but it will give you, for instance, dental hygiene says you must have content in chemistry, you must have content in all of these areas, anatomy and physiology. So all these courses all these accrediting bodies have some sort of guidelines. And so it's not like they won't be offering very, very basic and the same types of content, because all of the content is pretty much the same. It's just how we choose to deliver it. So this is not saying that they're not going to deliver this content. This is just saying that this is what they feel should be in their program of study. It's giving flexibility. It's giving a lot of flexibility.
Right, and if you'll notice, there's a note at the bottom of the framework page talking about the Accreditation Council for OTA. And one of the issues that subcommittee had was each program is individually accredited and is based on what they offer. And so having someone else, the state or the program of study subcommittee, dictate what they need to offer kind of goes against their accreditation standards. And just to finalize, it was Evangeline de Leon who was the other chair of that subcommittee. And she couldn't be here today, but
Any other questions or comments?
I feel that the OTA has plenty of room in the POS studies to account for some of the comments that I read. They just didn't understand the process, what POS is, and so I'm comfortable recommending or moving forward.
I agree. That's what I get when I read the comments, is that they just didn't quite understand what the POS is all about, which is understandable.
So perhaps, are we at the point for the committee to recommend that this move forward?
right, if that is your.
So-
Oh.
I'd make a motion that
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions? Motion passes. The PTA is recommended to the TATCB.
OT.
OTA.
OTA.
OTA is recommended to the TATCB.
I have a question. When this goes out for public comment, is the program of study well explained in that?
I've included the memo that goes with that.
Okay.
I think it's kind of a boilerplate or standard memo that.
Did we give them this memo?
Yeah, that's the memo that went out.
No, do they have it?
Oh, yes, it's in
In
your
the materials?
Yeah, it's in your packet.
There's a memo dated October 5th, 2017. Well, I would maybe offer a suggestion that if, and again, it's a suggestion, that y'all could make a motion to approve that the co-chairs approve a final memo, and we will work with them to add a paragraph or whatever is appropriate that maybe goes back and speaks to the statute, the bill that created this, although we reference administrative code, but just whatever part you think is missing or whatever needs to be added, we'll certainly take a look at that and try to add whatever it is that you feel is missing. I will tell you that we do try to keep our communications precise because we send so many documents. I mean, right after the board meeting in January on fields of study, we had so many documents about fields of study that were getting ready to be sent that quite honestly, even internally, we were kind of struggling with the iterations of who's on first. And so when we fill your inboxes up, you know, so whatever you feel is missing, we would certainly, you know, we would welcome your suggestions, and then we'll incorporate it. And then if you're comfortable with your co-chairs doing it as opposed to all of us trying to, you know, again, we don't want to come back to Austin and edit an email, I don't think, or edit a memo or whatever.
Okay, can we just take a second to, if you have your lunch envelopes, go ahead and pass them to the far end, and Amy can pick them up. Actually,
So Gary, while that's going on, I asked questions about the process because, you know, we do the same thing at the Board of Nursing. When we're going to make some changes, we put it on the Texas Register. But people have to go there and read it. And a lot of the comments we get back are strictly because they don't understand. But we do try to explain it to them. So the bigger ones are the ones that really might make a change in whatever we're proposing. But it's a process that works, but people have to be a part of it. We can't take it to their door and say, read this.
Gary, would it help if one or two of us worked with you and wrote that? Because wouldn't it be the same in all the subsequent ones we send out?
Yeah. I mean,
And then the co-chairs?
Yeah. However y'all want to do it.
Just a suggestion, Mr. Chair.
We'll certainly, you know, we want the message, as Jan said, we want the message to be the right message, and you know, we're not opposed to adding a paragraph. I would tell you that if you want to add 5 pages, I kind of like wait a minute. Let's you know, they're not going to read it, but if it's a few sentences that adds clarity or whatever, I certainly am not opposed to that. And obviously the factual stuff is the factual stuff, but I think we all know that anyway.
I'd like to start this little discussion by saying, thanks, Gary. I'd like to start this little discussion by saying, thanks, Gary. Volunteering to co-chair, thank you.
But I guess Brian's going to make a motion that he's going to write it.
That's what I got from that. Yeah. So why don't we just ask for volunteers to start with? All right, let's do that. So do we have anybody that's interested in doing that? She volunteered you.
I think it's more efficient that way.
Yeah. So we have 2 volunteers to work with you on that. And do you have their names, Dwayne? Okay.
Well, what I was going to say, let's, Carol and Brian, if y'all write something, maybe send it to Dwayne. You can courtesy copy me, but Dwayne will then take this memo and incorporate it back into it. And Dwayne can also send this to you electronically if you don't have an electronic copy of it, so you don't have to recreate it. But however you want to do, insert at this point and give us a paragraph or whatever you want. And then once we've done that, then I think if the committee is okay with the co-chairs approving it, then we'll go from there and send it out.
So why don't you send us what you've got, and then we'll email back and forth, and agree on something and send to you two, and then maybe send it out to the whole group for review.
That works.
Okay, so we finished OTA, and now we have additional info, a process to create additional info for the memo for comments for PTA. Are there any other comments on the PTA at this time? Questions? Do we have a
I'll
recommendation
just
for the
make a
PTA?
comment real quick. I was part of the subcommittee co-chairing it, and I was in the PTA group, and there was a lot of discussion, but all programs that were present did feel like they would be able to meet and accommodate according to this program of study.
So we need a recommendation. That's would be a motion.
To send it for public.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to send it for public comment and a second. Any discussion? Motion, second. Discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, no? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Next on the agenda, we have to review the EMS Services Program of Study Subcommittee.
And just a reminder, this recommendation was brought to the meeting last year, but the subcommittee wanted to meet one more time to finalize the draft or the proposal. So we have the minutes from that meeting, which was April 12th, and then their proposed program of study on the last page.
Do we have a report from that group? From that last meeting, or?
Yeah, that was Evangeline and Donna. And I'm sorry, it was almost a year ago, so I'm not sure if you remember.
See what happens when you come in late and all of a sudden you're on the spot.
Let me just go ahead and say, since I was kind of watching the video recently of that meeting, and so I kind of a little bit fresher, maybe too fresh in my mind, but the main issues they discussed were whether or not to include the EMT, which are the first two courses, in the associate degree, because that's 6 hour, it's a 6 hour, basically 5 hour course and a 1 hour clinical. And the concern was that that was 6 hours, that was part of the degree that could be used for other things, since the EMT certificate or certification is required before a student can go into the paramedic program. But the, I guess, consensus or answer was that since most colleges do offer those 6 hours, that we would include it in the program of study. And I guess there was at the bottom, if the student already has EMT certification, then they can, I guess, skip those two courses and perhaps take other courses. or get credit for those courses, credit by.
And many of the colleges, that is part of a stackable credential type of thing. This is the first one, and then they move on to get the paramedics, so I don't see a problem with it.
I don't either. And one of the things about the EMT is that you can get your basic just about anywhere.
Right, and they mentioned even in high school.
Even in high school, exactly. So I think they did a good thing.
And this one has not been out to public comment?
That's right.
Correct, okay.
And the other thing I want to mention, in case somebody is sharp enough to notice, and the last course, the practicum, the committee thought or recommended that the total clinical plus practicum is around 8 hours. And so if a student takes I guess some colleges offer the practicum, some offer the clinical, and it has to do with the number of contact hours that it takes for a student to get all of the competencies. So that's kind of explains why the practicum, the hours are kind of switched. Because if you have the clinical one, which is between 1 and 3 hours, and then the second clinical, which is 2 and 3 hours, that is 3 and 6 for clinicals. And then the 5 and 2 make it 8 and 8. So that's kind of why the practicum is kind of switched. So if they offer more clinicals, then they offer fewer practicum. If they offer fewer practicum, more practicum, they offer fewer clinical. And then one other thing that the subcommittee mentioned was there were some, most of the courses are like 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 hours, but there were 3 courses that they recommended that those were the most commonly taught versions of that course. So that's patient assessment was 1356, trauma management was 1355, and then medical emergencies was 2434. So the other option, the 4 or 5 hour option, was not being taught or as frequently. So they recommended those to be incorporated into specifically those courses to be incorporated without the range. Not yet, no.
And so the recommendation would be to either send it out to comment or send it back to the EMS people.
Right,
I move that we send this out for comment.
I second it.
So a motion and a second, any discussion? No comments? All those in favor of sending it for comments, aye? Aye. Those opposed, no? Any abstentions? Recommendation is to send it out for comment. Okay. Next up, the Dental Hygiene Program of Study Subcommittee report.
I was the chair of that committee, and Abe, as you can see, I kind of got outvoted. It is what it is. I can live with it. I still believe that there are too many courses in the POS. That's my own opinion. All the program directors that were there felt like they could live with this, and so that's where it went. We did make some changes in our courses, did a WECM review, and that's also included. Yeah, we were 68 hours.
So Carol, you said all of them were pretty much in agreement with everything?
Yeah.
Then I make a motion that this goes out for comment.
I second that motion.
Do we have a motion and a second? Any discussion? Actually, I do have something I want to ask. With the 4 hours in A&P 1, 4 hours A&P 2, and 4 hours in micro for 12 hours recommended in Gen Ed, takes them to 55 hours if they go with the minimum range in SC8. 43 hours minimum range in SC8. Okay. When we send it to discussion, or for comment, I should say, I don't even know how to say this. Is there, oh, yeah. If a program chooses to go to the 59 with the 12 hours for the 3 biology courses, they're not going to have enough room left to finish out the Gen Ed. Right?
And to clarify, they have nine hours remaining to get to 68. So
that covers humanities, social sciences, natural science is already covered. Natural science, math, 9, speech, and English. Okay, all right. Okay, I got it. So they would be able to cover it with the 68. That's correct, right?
yes,
Counting. Yes, so it's humanities, speech, English, math or science. Yeah. What is the 5th one? What am I missing? Humanities.
right,
speech,
you got humanities and then behavioral.
Social science, yeah, social or psychological science, okay. All right, so there is space for them to be able to cover it even if they go to 59 hours. All right, I just wanted to clarify on that. Any other comments, questions? Do we have a motion and a second? All those in favor, aye. Those opposed, no. Abstentions?
About the comment and then.
So the recommendation is to send this forward for comments.
Oh,
Next up, radiologic sciences. Radiologic sciences report.
that's yours.
Yeah, that's mine. I just wondered if you had anything to say first.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so the radiologic sciences, the committee met 2 times. The first time, we didn't get a lot done. Spent a great deal of time arguing about how the state has no right to tell them what to do.
I think that could pretty much be said for most of the subcommittee meetings.
And Gary lost some weight in that one. So he had a little bit of his area chewed off there.
Right.
The first meeting was very contentious at the beginning, but at some point there was a transition where it was kind of an aha moment for the entire group.
What did they do with these?
We ran out of time to finish at the first meeting, came back to the second meeting, and we were done in 45 minutes. So they left the second meeting pretty happy with what they have come up with, what they recommended here. So I guess we're going to look for comments here. Any comments, questions?
Don, and I'm sorry I stepped away for a minute. I've got to go deal with something. But on the dental hygiene, you talked about the sequence of courses, but I want to be sure and point out Dwayne included the WACM courses. It's hard to see in the document that we provided you, sorry about that, but I believe, if what I understand that Dwayne is telling me, on the first course, it adds an introduction to the dental team. Is that the highlighted part?
Right.
And then on the next one, well, he'll pull it up, but the bottom two, it adds part 2 of a 2-course sequence, part 1 of a 1-course sequence. And so I want to point these changes out to you because that's part of, we're asking the programs of study to look at here you go. We're asking the programs of study to look at courses, and this is their feedback. And so while they're changing courses, we probably had more people than we would have normally had on a WECM team reviewing the courses. And of course, they're the subject matter experts, and this was part of how they came to commonality. And so that was part of the conversation, but I want to make sure we point that out to you so that you're aware of what they're changing. And, so apparently down here we added dental hygiene theory to emphasize that it's just not theory in general. But so you're aware of those changes.
Okay. Let's see. The radiologic sciences people did much the same process. They reviewed the descriptions of each of the courses that they had decided to include in the program of study, and created some options for various courses so that they have a range of content, discipline-specific content from 23 to 33 credit hours. Excuse me. And they added one statement to RAD 1X01, Introduction to Radiography, RAD 1X03, Patient Care, can be substituted for RAD 1X09, Intro to Radiography and Patient Care. What they discovered in their meeting was that they had 3 courses. One of them was, I believe it was a 5-hour course, and then there were a 2-hour and a 3-hour course. That when you take the 2-hour and 3-hour course and combine the course descriptions and the course outcomes, they were exactly the same as the 5-hour course. And practically every program was teaching either the 5-hour course or the 2- and 3-hour combination. And I don't think anybody had ever recognized that before that meeting, that they were doing that. And so they created the option for a program to go either way with the combination of the 2 courses or the single course. And that was a statement they wanted to add to their program of study. And that's under Agenda Item 5, Note 3. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Questions or comments?
I move for approval to send out to public comment.
Do we have a motion to send it for public comment?
I second it.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? Questions or comments on the motion? All right, so the motion is to approve to send for public comment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? The motion to send it for public approval passes. Okay, so we're on to respiratory care. So, let's see, find my paper. All right, respiratory care program of study subcommittee report.
Our first day was pretty much like y'all's. We had 2 visits, and, it took a little time to realize we're doing this for the state, not for our individual programs. But when we came back on our second meeting, we had done a lot of combining of courses that were basically the same thing, and everybody here agreed with what is on the paper, so they were all okay with it. There were some people that were like, okay, we have to make this to make it work for everybody across the state. So the first 3 basic semesters are settled, and the last 2 are to do with whatever you do in your local area to meet your local needs. So.
and Michelle and others who are on that committee, when I was writing the minutes for this, I had a note that the subcommittee recommended, and this is on page 2 under item 4, like toward the bottom. It says courses in respiratory care were reviewed and the following changes were recommended. And it talks about combining the outcomes. And I'm trying to remember if the subcommittee itself was going to work on those courses or if this was going to be a recommendation to the WECM Advisory Committee, perhaps to convene a team to do these changes.
Right, because at the time, we decided that that's what they were going to be working on. So we were going to let the WECM team do that, other than what we had talked about while we were all there. And I think you had made those changes when we were present for that part of it,
Okay.
so.
Other comments? Questions?
I recommend that we move for public comment on this one, respiratory care.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to move respiratory care forward for public comment. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions? So the motion to move respiratory care forward to public comment passes. So I guess we're moving forward now to create additional health science programs subcommittees. Dwayne, do you guys have any particular committees?
Yeah, I'll try to get some information after lunch, but if you look at the minutes from the February 21st, last year's meeting, right, page 5. So we've just done dental hygiene, respiratory therapy, and radiologic technology. And then the next 3 recommendations were health information, medical assisting, and substance abuse. There's still a question, and perhaps, I'm not sure if anyone has worked on, we've been told to put diagnostic medical sonography on hold because they were meeting with their, or there was going to be some meeting or major change. Has that happened yet, or is it still going to happen, or is that still on hold?
They're actually ready for a discussion with you guys. They've spent quite a bit of time working remotely through teleconferences, et cetera, and working out a recommended program of study. And so they're ready to talk to you guys about what they recommended, or the subcommittee chairs as a group, to move forward with that because they think they've got it hammered out.
Okay, so if it's this committee's recommendation to form that subcommittee, then we will. Right.
That was all without the mic. So we're adding diagnostic medical sonography to the list of proposed subcommittees to be developed after dental hygiene, respiratory care, and radiologic technology were done. All right, so since we have these 3 identified, we'll need a motion to create these subcommittees. Or 4, I'm sorry. Yeah, because we had a DMSO. We'll need a motion to create these 4 subcommittees, and then we'll be looking for volunteers for the subcommittee chairs. Can we take lunch? Is lunch here?
Yes.
No. Well, let's go on then. Oh, okay. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's one we want to consider. Is it too small a group? I'd mentioned to Gary about it. One of the things is, we talked, there's Amarillo, Houston, TC's, Terry.
came after Blair.
You ready to start?
Oh, yeah.
Are we? Okay, if we could call this meeting back to order. Okay, so we're calling this meeting back to order to inform you that lunch is here now. Yeah, so do we want to take a break for lunch at this point? Well, it's not here yet, though. No. Why don't we take one more point here and see where we are with the lunch, and then decide what we're going to do. So we're up to establishment of new subcommittees. We have 4 recommendations. Where did that go? Oh, 4 recommendations. Health information management, medical assisting, substance abuse, and diagnostic medical sonography. Discussion, comments, questions?
To form the committees.
Yeah, I think the idea was just to recommend the formation of these committees, and then DHECB sends out the call for committee members to be nominated, and then they'll screen them and all, and then they will call them according to their schedule. So.
Do we not also volunteer from this committee?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right, and I guess you all have first dibs, but we also have to recognize that there are about 8 members that aren't here yet. So we can go ahead and make recommendations, but we'll also send out an email asking if any of those other members would like to serve on one of the committees.
On the diagnostic medical sonography, is that going to include echocardiography?
That
They're in the same zip code.
Right, and a lot of it depends on when we get nominations. If we have enough representatives in echocardiography, then we'll include that.
Other questions? So we need a motion.
I make a motion for us to form 4 of these subcommittees, recommendation for the formation of 4 of these subcommittees: health information management, medical assisting, substance abuse, and diagnostic medical sonography.
We have a motion and a second to form 4 subcommittees, including health information management, medical assisting, substance abuse, and diagnostic medical sonography. Questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor, aye. Those opposed, no. Abstentions? So the motion to form 4 subcommittees for health information management, medical assisting, substance abuse, and diagnostic medical sonography passes.
Can I ask a question?
You're a little late.
Well, no, not about that. I'm good with the 4, but can we at least explore how many others are there? I mean, and I had to leave for a minute, but are there still 12 other subcommittees, or are we getting near the end of the bottom of health science?
Well, there's still a few out there, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend nuclear medicine as one. There's only 4 colleges, but I've communicated those 4.
There's also surgical technology and medical assisting. Okay. Did I read medical assisting just now? I did, never mind. There's also surgical technology.
And then somebody said with trepidation, there's also nursing, but.
Yeah, but I think nursing was a separate group, weren't they? Weren't they doing it separately?
Well, we've done the nursing field study. we probably need to do the associate degree, applied associate degree in nursing.
Do you want to take up Brian's motion? To add this, as I understand it, the nuclear medicine will be a very small subcommittee of about 4 people. And seems it should be a pretty straightforward.
So do we have a motion right now on the floor? Yeah, but we're talking about the nuclear med. There was not a motion for nuclear med, right? Yeah. So
Okay.
we're just putting names out there. Okay. So we got surgical technology nursing. We also, medical lab technology is another one we need to look at.
There was a list. At
Right,
the first meeting, there was a list. I don't have that. I don't have it with me.
I'll bring that up during
Okay.
lunch, and then we can
Okay.
probably talk about it after lunch.
And it was a,
Right.
All right. Okay, so we have these 4, and we want to look at the list to see what others we may need to call in the future. And Dwayne's going to bring that list up during lunch for that information. So do we want to move on to lunch then, since it is
Actually-
actually now here?
Before we do that, I mean, do we want to go ahead and pick maybe the first person for each of those subcommittees? And then we'll do the second person by email? Just so we can have a name.
Yeah, I thought we were just going to send it out because the other 8 weren't here, but that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. That's up to the group. So we need, we'll just start with health information management, and we need 1 member from this group to be a chair.
I need to ask a question first. Cycle of terms, 2 years, are we there yet before we volunteer for a committee and we're no longer on this committee?
Oh, that's probably something else we'll have to need to bring up after lunch. The terms expire August 31st of each year. So we'll have to look at the terms that are expiring this year and, consider renewing or replacing them.
We might need to wait till after lunch to get that list and get the terms,
yeah.
just to make sure we're not
That'd probably be a good
doubling our
idea.
work. Yeah,
Right.
just a thought.
Gary, do you want to weigh in on this?
You can volunteer for another term.
Well, yeah, this is a discussion we had before. So I asked Gary about this, about the cycle. And Gary, why don't you just tell him, Gary? Go.
You're welcome to say Gary said. People do it all the time. You can, continuity of membership is obviously important to the work we're doing, both in programs of study and fields of study. And so as we get to terms, we can discuss, you can volunteer to be reappointed, or you can say, I've done my time, set me free. But obviously planning is important. If we start a subcommittee, we just as much we need continuity there, so we can have that conversation about where are you from a timing point of view. But anybody that wants to volunteer to stick around is probably welcome to volunteer to stick around. And the only requirement is probably that you got to speak favorably, and that's probably not even a requirement. You could probably be as opposed as you want to be, but as long as you come and participate honestly, that's the role of the committee, right?
And is that something we should do today? Because we're not likely to have a meeting again before August with this group.
As Dwayne said, maybe let's pull up the list. I assume he has the list. I don't have the list, and I don't know what your terms are, but we can maybe look at it, and that would perhaps be something we need to take to our June, July board meeting, is reappointments to expand the terms of y'all. Okay?
All right, so it looks like we have 2 items to be pulled up during lunch for information, so I guess we might as well just go ahead and break for lunch and give Dwayne some time to work during lunch while we go have lunch. All right, so want to take 15 minutes to get your lunch? Half hour? What are we doing? Whatever.
Whatever it takes to eat.
All right, let's break for lunch, and we will reconvene the meeting at 12 o'clock. That's 28 minutes.
Will the meeting please come to order? The committee members?
Okay, so we left off, we had approved 4 additional subcommittees, and we were going to ask for volunteers for those committees. So we'll start with the Health Information Management Committee. And the suggestion was made that we select at this time 1 member for each of the subcommittees, and then make the second selection by email, so that those that are not here today have the opportunity to volunteer for that as well. So, any volunteers for the Health Information Management Subcommittee to serve as the chair? Okay, so Abe Johnson, in case you didn't see the hand, is volunteered for that one. Medical assisting. All right. We have Wanda Johnson for that one. Substance abuse.
I'll do that one.
Okay. Sorry. Shirley. No. Shirley McNeil for substance abuse and diagnostic medical sonography. I'll do that one. Don Martin. Okay. And then you'll be sending out an email to the entire committee for additional volunteers for each of these for 2 people, for a total of 2 people for each group, right? Yes.
Right, at least 2 people. So if there are additional that want to attend, they may also.
Yes. Right. And so we were going to look at 2 things, and I can only remember what one of them was. Yeah, the terms, yeah, okay. Yeah, the terms was the second thing I couldn't remember. So the first thing we're going to look at was what additional subcommittees we need to consider creating for a program of study based upon the list that we had for declared majors by curriculum area. And we also mentioned that Surge Tech, Nursing, LVN, and Med Lab Tech were areas that we needed to consider. So we've already got those 4. Which ones have we completed? Is there a way we can highlight the ones we've completed so we know we're done there? Okay. Veterinary, there's veterinary tech or assistant also. What's that? Do we just want to formulate a plan for how we call these subcommittees going forward? And say that we start with the 4 that we have, and then the next 4 highest enrollments would be the next group we call? We're going to do something like that? Roll it over till we have them done? Ideas, comments?
No, I'm sorry, I just wanted to get on, on the mic. I just wanted to highlight these three because they are basically in the same, different specializations within the same program. So that would probably be just one subcommittee for the health information, coding, and medical secretary. So I just want to show, I'm sorry, so I guess what I'm saying is that these three would be covered in the health information management subcommittee. So these ones in yellow are the ones that we just appointed today.
How many are on
So,
the list altogether?
It goes down to some of the more obscure. But we can probably get down to about 40 before it starts getting into, most of the lower ones are the either specializations like nursing administration or more graduate level like medicine and
And Dwayne, did you do any filtering based off of either applied associate degrees and/or certificates? I think based on what you just said, I think the answer is no.
Right.
Well, I know you didn't because there's dentistry. And we don't have an applied associate degree in dentistry.
Right.
Maybe we should get one of those. No. So,
okay, so going back, okay, so at the top of the list are the nursing and LVN. Psychology is more of an academic. We don't really have any applied associates in psychology. We do have this one, psychiatric mental health services, which is the social work. So that would probably be among the next group. Right, I think you're right. So then we also have surgical technology, which is on our list, or on our, I guess, which future list. Veterinary, pharmacy, farm tech, medical lab. We have the biotech, the athletic. I don't believe we have any in the SIP 51. Those are mainly in the SIP 30, 35, I believe.
We have dental.
Right, we finished dental. I'm sorry.
No, that's.
Right, we had the dental assistant and dental lab that are still pending. And then nuclear medicine, as Brian mentioned, bring that up. This one would be covered in the health information management group. Okay, here's the social work that you're mentioning, which is part of that substance abuse counseling. This physical therapy is more the, I guess, bachelor's or higher. We do have a couple of programs in optometric.
I think Tyler has a program. I think Terrence has a program. Who else has a program, do you know? The optometry, the optomelathic, I think it is the root word.
So these are the ophthalmic and so St. Philip's, Austin, San Jacinto, and Tyler.
And yours, this is, Taryn is not in the list because yours is below the hours. It's the, so really we have 1, 2, okay, 4 schools. I think we probably need to have some internal conversations on some of these. Once you start getting that small, getting a statewide committee per se is challenging.
Right, we do have the massage therapy, but again, that's mostly CE. There were a few certificates, but electro-neuro.
Yeah, we have an invasive cardiovascular technology program, but there's only 2 others in the state. Whenever they need to do anything, they just call each other and say, hey, let's change whatever. So I think that's probably a good model for the smaller groups.
So
I have a process question. There was some concern expressed about staffing of these efforts. Does that limit or inform how many programs we take on this year?
Well, I think what you're discussing right now, and even discussing of what's left, fits well within the scope of what we're planning and all that kind of stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, we hope to make a. We're in the process of interviewing 2 people, and they will be doing, part of their jobs will be doing programs of study. And actually, let me correct myself. I said in the process of interviewing 2 people. We're in the process of interviewing for 2 positions that involves interviewing several people, but we're getting to the end of that, and so hopefully we'll get these new staff in place. March 1 is probably optimistic, but somewhere March 15th or so. And so this is in our scope of work that we have planned for the year. And then I don't know if we shared this with y'all or not, but right above us on the second floor is another room that we have outfitted for webcasting. And before we've had a limitation not only of staff and resources, but also of broadcasting, webcasting resources. And so, we doubled our webcasting resources by having 2 rooms, but it does help alleviate the pressure. And so, yeah, y'all are good to go. We're wanting to get this work up to speed and up to space, and then really and truly, not this meeting per se, but fields of study for the academic side. We're working aggressively on fields of study, and we've already had 5 different disciplines that have met this year. And so we're ramping it up, and we continue to plan on ramping it up because, it's in the best interest of students. It's important work.
I'm still back to my first thought is that we go with the ones that we've identified today, and that we formulate a plan for calling committees in a rolling progression of by identifying programs by enrollment and starting with the highest and going down 4 at a time until we get to the point where we don't need to be messing with them because they're so small and it just needs to be done in that small group. So that's my thought. Well, and at some point, nursing's got to be done, so. And the fact that nursing has done field of study and has been through a similar process, I think will probably make it somewhat easier. I hope. I'm optimistic. I'm going to say it so. So that means, yeah. That means we need a motion on our plan.
I move that we go with Don's plan.
I second it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to implement a plan to call committees, subcommittees, I should say, 4 at a time, based upon enrollment from highest to lowest.
To such a time when we don't need to.
Any questions or discussion, comments on the motion? That was right, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. Stated motion correctly. No comments, questions, discussions, any additional? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, no? Abstentions? So the motion passes, and I hope you guys can figure out how to write it down, so.
Does that mean we should go ahead and try to get chairs for nursing, surg tech, the other large programs?
Well,
I think the point was that when we come back in the next group, we'll identify those 4, or they'll identify by the list, the top 4, and then we'll just get volunteers for them at that point, and it'll just be a rolling process then from then on, so.
I would suggest the Thebes staff look at the cabinet model that was developed a few years ago, because part of the work may already be in that model.
And Jan, yes, I don't understand the cabinet model, but I have knowledge of the cabinet model. Maybe I should put it that way. But when the group comes together, the subcommittee to do that, obviously that would be on their plate of looking at that model and the other models as well, and discuss where all that fits.
We had mentioned before at the beginning about not necessarily having one program of study for nursing because of the different modes that we have. Yes.
That might be a possibility of discussing 2 programs of study of either this model or that model, which, a student, and this is true already today, if you start in the cabinet model and you move to over here where they're not doing it, transferring and fitting in is not possible. And so if we had 2 models of this or that, that might help alleviate the problem, but it's, well, it's, we have to honor the legislation, obviously. But as an example, we had kinesiology in here last Thursday, Friday, I think it was, and they actually came up with 2 pathways for their fields of study, because there's the kinesiology science pathway, and then the kinesiology education pathway, if you basically want to be a high school teacher or wherever they bring sports into the public school curriculum. And so, yes, I agree, but then we've also got to be realistic of what's out there and what's practice, and trying to figure out how to come to the best common ground that's in the interest of students. And I guess I should go ahead and say, just for the obvious, what a paradigm that would be if we got down to 2 nursing programs, either cabinet or this model, as opposed to the 50 unique models that we have right now. So I mean,
There were 6 or 7 in that original pilot study that's done.
So following the model that we've established previously, in the past, we have created subcommittees, and then we've proposed subcommittees for the next group to come back and then establish. Based upon what we just discussed, nursing for sure at the top as part of the group for the next. we would need to see what the next three were in enrollment to determine what programs we were adding. So, Dwayne, if you could go to the top of the list so we can see who we haven't called so far. We've got nursing and LVN. So nursing would be the first, LVN. And dental we've done. So psychiatric mental health services tech would be next. Is that correct?
Right, and again, that is the, like, addiction
And
drug.
then surge tech after that. So that would be the next four. That's why I'm asking. I don't know. The question is mental health under substance abuse, or is
I'm
that
sorry,
separate?
that is correct. Yes, psychiatric mental health is the SIP code, the official title of that program, the substance abuse.
Okay, so we've done that one. So surge tech and then veterinary would be the next two. I count
I'm
four.
sorry, it's nursing, LVN, surge tech, and veterinary. Mental health, we've assigned.
That's the substance abuse.
So that's
apparently.
the one we assigned today. I'm sorry? We, no.
Substance abuse is already.
It's a new one.
Okay. I got you. Thank you.
Okay. So RN, LVN, surge tech, and then veterinary.
So we're proposing then that nursing, LVN, surge tech, and vet tech be the next four subcommittees to be developed once we've completed the four that we have at this time.
Dwayne, Surge Tech is moving to an associate's degree, I think, in 2021. So I think it's appropriate that we're doing that soon because, you know, a lot of programs, our program, for instance, is going to have both programs for a short period of time. So,
Okay.
Motion?
so moved.
I second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second that the proposed subcommittees for the next meeting to be discussed would be nursing, LVN, surge tech, and veterinary tech.
You know, a discussion point, while Brian's comment about they're moving to an associate degree in 2021, I know you've put it on your list now, but obviously that's something that we need to work to make sure that we capture both the program of study and the WACM course changes, expansion, whatever happens. But the thing is, as I have discussed, and we've talked about this transition and what we're doing, we collectively as a state need to make sure we stay out in front of this. And while 2021 may seem like it's, you know, a ways away, we've got to have this ready for catalogs literally a year in advance. And so, you know, we will work on it. And, you know, yes, thank y'all for talking about it, but y'all as the WACM group, as we've got to mirror all these things together. And it's a bit of where the rubber meets the road, and we're all kind of on this learning curve as we try to transition. But that's a very good point, Brian, of let's figure out how to make it happen seamlessly so that we don't go create a bunch of local need courses, a bunch of special topic courses, whatever it is. Let's get the courses done up front, and then just everybody go forth and implement.
Yeah, and just to clarify, several colleges already offer AAS. Are you saying that the certificate is going away?
Right, yeah, it'll be transitioned at some point. I think schools will handle it in their own infinite wisdom, but I agree, Gary, that I think getting ahead of it would help those faculty and it'd help the WECM committee too. So maybe we should move it up as one of the five, I don't know.
So we had a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Can I make a motion to amend the motion? Or I guess we could vote on that motion, then I'll make another one. How about that?
I'm trying to think how Roberts would handle it. I think actually we have to either vote yes or no on that one, and we can vote that one down and then create a new one.
Okay. Under Robert's rules, you can do a friendly amendment, and then it goes to the person that first made the amendment, the motion, excuse me, to accept or reject the amendment, and then the vote, or you can just vote down, because at some point, if you're not careful, it becomes so convoluted. But however you want to go.
I amend my motion to get my glasses on. To include our next four to be nursing, LVN, vet tech, and I amend my motion to move surge tech into the four we're going to do soon. Next group, yes, right.
And
Makes
then
sense, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
additionally, if you want to, you can recommend the next, I guess,
Oh, what would the next one be?
pharmacy tech.
Pharmacy tech then would be in the second four.
Okay, so the friendly amendment is to remove surge tech from the upcoming group and include it with the current group, and to move pharmacy tech into the upcoming group. The current group then would include health information management, medical assisting, substance abuse, sonography, and surge tech. And then the next group would include nursing, LVN, vet tech, and pharmacy tech. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so, I guess we need to re-second that.
I'll second again.
So discussion, comments, questions? That was kind of convoluted. That's my discussion. No comments? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, no? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
And along with what we
It's really kind of my baby. I just, if that's okay with you, I would prefer to do surge tech. Okay, so Dwayne, we're changing on the sonography, and Brian is going to do sonography.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do surge tech. I don't want to take it away from you if you really want to do it, but. Yeah, so the next thing, I guess, is the terms.
So the rules basically give the chairs set them as a 2-year term. I'm not quite sure if those are eligible to be renewed for another 3 years or. Right.
You can either re-up or just not be the chair anymore and come back and just be a committee member. But what? But okay, with 2018, wasn't the first meeting of this group of February last year?
2016.
16.
Well, the nominations. It was June of 2016.
Okay, so June of 16 is when we, yeah, okay. Okay, why don't, so everybody that has an 18 term that's here, I guess, who is that? As I try to. Yeah,
Right.
scrolling down, Dwayne, so we can see who all has an 18. Why don't we do this via email about who will up again if you have an 18, and we'll take it back to the board and reappoint for we'll discuss internally and come back with a recommendation to you of either 2 years or 3 years. I'm thinking 3 years, quite honestly, just trying to figure out how much more work we have to do. But we'll discuss internally, and we'll send it to everybody on the list that is scheduled to rotate off in 18. Do you want to re-up? And if so, you can just reply yes. And if not, we will solicit new nominations for replacements. Does that work?
Right, we'll have to look up those. Right, sorry, Brian, yeah. We'll update this list, and then we'll send it out by email.
Okay, so everybody know whether they're terming out this year or not? Everybody got that? All right. And so we're going to do this by email. You're going to send out an email to those that are terming this year, asking whether they want to volunteer to continue or not. All right? Okay, future agenda items and resources for the next meeting. I think so, yeah. We've got our subcommittees for the next meeting. Resources, we need this place. So. Anything else anybody wants to add to that? Timeline, you'll send us out, let us know when place is available.
Yeah, as I think through my head, I kind of hope from a planning point of view, maybe towards the end of summer, early fall. That would give us time to get all those groups together. It'd give us time to get the nominations and take them back to the board in June and July to continue the appointments and all that kind of stuff. And maybe Dwayne can do a doodle poll or something and try to go ahead and pick a date. Probably mid-September or so is probably actually better because, do what, Dwayne?
Wondering if we need to do it before August 31st. That's when the terms expire.
Well, but if we take them to the June, July board meeting and reappoint, okay, we'll be good. And I mean, y'all can discuss it. Obviously, it just seemed like with the semester and August and vacations and all that stuff, that mid-September might be a better date range, assuming availability of one of our meeting resources. And then in that 6 months, we're not committing, but we'll take the reappointments to the board, barring anything. I can't speak for the board, but the appointments are normally on the consent calendar. So we'll get the committee put back together. We will work on the comments on all of this and hopefully take those to the June, July board. And then we will take all of the new 5 by adding Surge Tech, and we will try to have had the committee meetings of that group by then. And if we can get all that accomplished in the next 6 months, that'll get us pretty far down the road in the health science career cluster. Dwayne, if you didn't understand that, you're going to be busy, okay?
I got that idea. I just, there's a word, there was a word you used that I'm not quite sure the meaning of. What is vacation?
So if there's not anything else, then I'm going to call for adjournment. Anybody have anything else? All right, well, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.